It is 6 o'clock, and I will call the December 10th, 2024 meeting of the Wythe County Board of Supervisors to order. We do have a quorum with all members present. Tonight we have Pastor Tim Irving from the Wytheville Baptist Church to provide the invocation. If you would, please stand and remain standing for the pledge.
Let us pray. Almighty Lord, we come before you tonight asking for your guidance, your wisdom, and your insight. We pray that you would provide that in a way that decisions that are made tonight would bring the best benefit to the people of this county. We thank you for those who serve. We ask that you would bless them in a special way. Guide and direct through your Holy Spirit tonight. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the first item on the agenda is citizens' time. We did not have anybody signed up to speak during citizens' time, so I'll close citizens' time. We'll move on to the payment of invoices. Each board member has received in their board package a copy of the invoices that need to be paid. I'll entertain a motion to pay the invoices.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Terry. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Burnett. Is there any invoice that any board member wants to pull out and or discuss? Right, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
So approved. The next item on our agenda is the minutes from our previous meeting from November the 26th, 2024. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Smith. Do I have a second? Have a second by Mr. Cook. Is there any corrections or additions to the minutes as presented? All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved. We'll move on to old business. We have some Recreation Commission appointments. Mr. Barry, I believe you've been working on that.
Just put this back on the agenda. A couple board members asked last time. Didn't know if anyone had any recommendations for this time. So,
Yep. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Lucas Hughes to represent the Fort Chisholm District. Is on the Recreation Commission. I have spoken to Mr. Hughes. Actually spoke to him again this afternoon, and he's willing to serve.
All right, have a motion by Mr. Smith to appoint Lucas Hughes to the Rec Commission. Do I have a second?
second.
Have a second by Mr. Terry. Excuse me. Is there any questions or discussion on the recommendation? Right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? So approved, and thank you to Mr. Hughes for agreeing to serve. Anything else under that?
And just on the rec commission, I don't remember when that next meeting is. It's in January, I believe. But
Mr. Williams actually has one scheduled for tomorrow night.
okay.
So we'll reach out to Mr. Hughes and see if he's available.
I'm sending you the information right now.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Then we have a post-election update from Lennon Counts, our registrar.
Anything that deals with money, that's gonna be numbers from the office. Okay.
Depends on how the voter turnout is.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Yeah, so I just wanted to come and give y'all an update on this election. This microphone's echoing pretty loud here. This was election number 13 for me and Linda. Luckily, there was no bad omens associated with that number. For this particular election, we had 15,523 ballots cast, which was about 71% turnout. Wasn't much different than what we had in 2020. Total cost of this election, I still haven't gotten a invoice for the programming of our voting machines, but will probably be somewhere around $29,000. We utilized 53 officers of election for this particular election. Our IT department, big thanks to our building and grounds for always assisting, the sheriff's office, the Virginia State Police, and the circuit court clerk's office as well. I will note before I get into the numbers that I have passed around with y'all that 3 out of our 11 precincts, we had more of a turnout during early voting than we had on election day. So that was a pretty interesting number that stood out to me for this particular election. The information that I passed out, I just wanted to kind of give y'all a comparison of where we stood this year to 2020. The top numbers there that you see is our by mail turnout. As you can tell, that was down for this election, which is pretty understandable. Of course, in 2020 we had the pandemic, so we had 1,528 folks vote then. 807 in 2024. So, like I said, that was down a little bit. Out of those 807, 676 of those voters are on our permanent absentee list, meaning every general election we have, they get mailed a ballot. So that's a lot of prep work that goes into leading up to the start of early voting. Going to our cap in-person turnout, we did exceed what we did in 2020. I know I have bounced that number off a couple times, and I think I've mentioned in past board meetings that I didn't think we would see more for this particular election, but we did exceed that turnout by close to 700, so that was impressive. Speaking to the early voting, our new space worked out great. We were very pleased with that. The flow worked out perfect to have folks come in through one door and out another. That, like I said, that really was beneficial to us. I told Mr. Baer the other day on the Friday before Election Day, we had 426 folks come through our office and vote. So it's a pretty heavy day on that day. Looking at our Election Day turnout itself, we were up higher this year compared to 2020. We had over 9,000 votes cast, which was probably a little bit of a trade-off from the folks that voted by mail probably in 2020. One number that I just really stands out that I want to point out and make you all aware of is the provisional turnout. If you look on that sheet, you'll see that in 2020 we had 38 provisional ballots. In 2024 we had 312. That is all directly related to same-day registration. It's a law that went into place in either before the November election in 22, I'm pretty sure. I know we had it last year in 2023, but I believe it went into effect in 2022. With this high volume of a turnout election, we were anticipating it, and we got hit pretty hard with them. For every single one of those same-day registrations, our precincts have to call our office to verify that that person is in the correct precinct. So you could imagine we were kind of like a call center on election day this year, getting those folks calling in. Of course, it wasn't just something that we dealt with. There were over 120,000 provisional ballots cast statewide, and as a comparison to 2020, there were only 20,000 cast. So it was a major spike. I don't believe this is a law that's going to go anywhere. I just saw some numbers today, and it looked like it benefited both parties pretty decently for this election, so I don't think any particular group in the legislature is going to be willing to redact it. Our association has put some bills asking for some bill sponsors to kind of not necessarily restrict it, but to we have a close of books to where you can't register to vote, and it's 21 days prior to Election Day. So if we can make our close of books closer to Election Day, that can cut out on some of that and take some of that workload off. It's a lot of work for us because we have to process all of those provisionals between Wednesday after Election Day and Monday. So, trying to verify all the results, all of those things, it kind of, you also have this looming thing of all these same days hanging over your head you have to get entered as well. Because we have to enter all those in, and they all have to be verified that the individual didn't do a same-day registration in another locality. So it's a lot of work for us between that time period. And one of my issues that I do have with it, and it particularly comes into play in local elections, is, when we ran into this last year, if you have a local race, your local race hinges on those provisionals, and you have to wait an entire week before you can determine what your outcome is. So that's kind of the issue that I have with it, but like I said, I don't believe it is going to be going anywhere anytime soon. Any questions on those same-day registrations?
I assume the state didn't include any additional funding to address that workload.
No, not yet.
And I believe the correct word is facetious.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So. It was actually funny. I asked Mr. Catron to give me to see if he could look up the amount of phone calls that we received on Election Day. And it was funny that whenever he looked it up, the call log only showed that our office received 38 calls on Election Day. So I said, well, I'll just take my estimation instead, because I know we received more. I said, I probably received 38 calls between 6 and 6:30. So. I did also want to note down at the bottom for this year too, if you look at the voter registrations that our office processed, 2023 from the beginning of the year till now, we processed 5,849. This year we processed 7,897, which of course there's always an uptick leading up to a presidential election. But with processing that many, we have crossed over 22,000 registered voters in that county. So that's the first time that we've hit that number since I've been here. So.
Lennon, on the registration thing, and I think we've talked about this before, but like even when I was in high school up until Debbie Wilkerson retired, who taught senior government, she always, if you were turning 18 or you were within that time period, she brought voter registration.
Yeah.
That's where I filled my first one out. Do you know, is the school system still doing that? Is that something that you could close down the office and go out to the 3 high schools? I mean, you're a good speaker.
Yeah, so going to that, so whenever I first started in 2019, I did go to the high schools. And then this year was the first year back that I started going back. So it's something I want to continue frequently doing.
And I honestly, I didn't know you'd done that, or I wouldn't ask.
Yeah, they did ask me to come, and so I was pleased with that. Like I said, in 2019 I did it. This year was my first year back, and I do plan on doing that every year. One thing you run into, and actually speaking with the government teachers, they actually, it's kind of funny because I bring in the paper applications, but since everybody has a tablet in school now, the government teachers every year actually have them all go online and do it. And I had no clue that they were actually doing that. So that was good to know that they are having them register. What I ran into when I went, which the government teachers kind of helped pick up the slack and get them delivered to me later on, was of course everybody nowadays that's that age don't know their social security number. So I got some on that day, and then the government teachers had to deliver them to me after that because there was a lot that didn't know their socials, even though they forewarned them that I would be there. But yeah, it was beneficial. I mean, we probably picked up close to 170 just off of that by going and doing that. So that was definitely beneficial on that end. So. And to go and remind them too that we don't just have elections every 4 years in Virginia. So that's a nice thing to go in there and do that as well. So, any questions about any other questions or comments about this particular election?
I will say, and I think we talked about it before, but the new location, I've had so many people that have complimented,
Yeah.
you know, and Johnny Kinser and they did a great job the way they laid it out. And actually, this is the first year I ever early voted, and I mean I felt like I was cheating before when I just had to walk, you know, down the hall.
Yeah.
But yeah, the way the building's designed, I mean, you're in and out in about 3 minutes.
Yeah, it's definitely quick on that end. You know, I was of course worried that moving our office prior to a presidential election, the amount of people coming in, trying to be able to find us, but it really worked out great. We really did not receive many calls from folks that said that they could not just absolutely find us.
And the parking situation,
Yeah,
I think is the
Yeah.
you know, the top compliment that I got.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, is there any reason we need to keep that handicap spot on 4th Street now?
If the sheriff's office doesn't have a need for it, we can probably work with the town on that.
Well, and the reason I ask that is because it sits empty 90% of the time, and if there is a need for an additional handicap spot, it needs to be up next to the other one because a lot of people don't like to parallel park.
Yeah.
And it is in the absolute middle. And
And parallel parking.
yeah,
It was funny because I remember thinking back when I requested that handicap spot. The only reason why I requested it was because the state makes us have those curbside signs out now, which I'm with you. Most people aren't going to pull and parallel parking. That's fine anyway. So.
and there's anybody that's ever been around this compound knows that there's a shortage of parking. So I just hate to see it be wasted. I mean, if there's a need for an additional one, let's make it make more sense. But
I just wanted to mention, as we're going into 2025, for our folks that are on the board that will be running choose to be running for re-election, the laws have changed. I emailed Mr. Smith yesterday on how parties can nominate candidates. So I encourage you to go ahead and reach out to us, and so I can kind of explain everything on how it'll be different moving forward. I don't know if there's been anything sent out from the parties on the way around this, but it basically seems like if you're going to have opposition for a party's nomination, there's pretty much no other way around it but to have a primary now in June. It seems like having mass meetings and firehouse primaries are pretty much going to be phased out. It might not be something we deal with this year, hopefully not, but potentially moving forward, I know with constitutional offices and stuff, there's always that potential. So just to kind of let you know, if you are planning to seek re-election, go ahead and reach out to us.
all right.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I'll just mention, I did send Lennon some information today. He's pulling some numbers for us. VACO, I think they have been preemptive in trying to come up with what the cost to replace voting equipment and everything is. They've sent out a survey, and he's going to give me that information. But I am assuming it's where VACO is trying to lobby to get some funding for replacement of equipment.
And that's what, after you sent that email, about 3 other registrars were in our region had received it as well today, and they were discussing, and that's what they had said too, that they were working to try to get some funding on that replacement. So.
It's worth a try.
Yeah. And I will note, we will be receiving our new poll books in the next coming months, and from a communication I received from the Department of Elections last week, we should be receiving our reimbursement for that grant sometime this week. So.
All right, well, thank you, sir.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, do we have anything else under old business, Mr. Baird?
No, sir.
All right, we'll move on to new business. We have a new library director for the Wythe Grayson Regional Library, and I'll let the gentleman from Speedwell introduce her, if you don't mind, Mr. Morgan.
Yes, Miss Amy Adams is joining us for the library as the director, and she comes to us from West Virginia. We think she's going to do a good job. She already has. She dove in with both feet. And so, Miss Adams.
I'm Amy Adams. I'm the new director with Grayson Regional Library. I was a director of Clarksburg Harrison Public Library in West Virginia, born and raised in West Virginia, so this is my first time in Virginia, living in Virginia. We've been welcomed very well here. My husband and I both moved here. We've been very impressed with the city of Wytheville. We brought my family down to visit, and I just want to thank everybody. Thank you to the board for bringing me on, and I'm excited to work with everybody.
Welcome.
Thank
We're
you.
happy to have you.
Thank you. If I remember correctly, was your interview scheduled originally for September 27th?
Yes. No, it was the week after that. I came down the week after
The week-
hurricane.
Okay. I was gonna say we Freeze Steakhouse was one of the places they talked about meeting, but they decided they would relocate just in case. So, look forward to working with you. Glad to have you on board.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, next we have a budget amendment request for the Mount Rogers Planning District grant. Mr. Bear, I believe that is you.
Yes, sir. We did receive a grant, received a grant from Mount Rogers PDC for $20,000. We will apply this towards the PER that you all recently approved for Peppers Ferry and Whispering Pines and Route 52. Request you all amend and appropriate that to the 9050470435 budget.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Smith, a second by Mr. Terry. Is there any questions or discussion on that motion? All right, here now we'll start with Mr. Burnett. Aye. So approved. Next item on the agenda is we've got our draft 2025 rules of procedure and meeting calendar. I don't know that we need to take any action on that.
No, sir. That we will have it on this agenda, the next agenda for consideration, and it'll be adopted at the first meeting in January. On page 55 is the proposed meeting calendar.
Yeah, I was scrolling down to that, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. I just the changes made to it are the last meeting in June, moving from June 24th to Monday, June 30th. We've done that over the last several years to do closeout day, and then November meeting moving to Wednesday, November 12th. The 11th is a holiday, and also will be the VACO conference. We would traditionally move that to Wednesday. In looking at that, I would ask everyone to look at March 17th, 18th, and 19th. That is historically the time frame that we have done budget presentations, and just see if that starts working with everyone's calendars. We won't set it as a regular meeting, but we can mark it on here for that, just for budget presentations, if that helps everyone in the process. But just trying to plan ahead for something that seems like we just finished doing recently. So.
One thing I will say is on the calendar, if everybody will just look at especially Thanksgiving and Christmas, because I noticed we've got penciled in 2 half days on November the 26th for Thanksgiving and December the 24th of all days for Christmas. if everybody will look at that and just think about what you want to do with that. I personally don't think this board's going to require the county staff to work half a day on Christmas Eve. But let's go ahead and when we do vote on this in January, let's just go, can we go ahead and do it so Martha don't have to remind us?
Yeah, that's good.
I mean,
So the employees
I
can
don't-
plan better as well.
do what?
And so the employees can plan
Yeah,
better.
exactly. I mean, historically, I think we've been pretty good about addressing that, but sometimes based on when our meetings fall and when we remember it, sometimes they don't have a lot of notice, so.
If y'all would like, and we won't add it to the rules of procedure, but we'll make it on the January meeting a holiday calendar to go ahead and vote and add those additional days. If Ms. Collins will help me remember that, we'll do that if that's what you all want, and add the 24th and the 26th or whatever you want as full days, whatever you want there. Okay.
All right, next we've got some appointments, and I'm not sure.
This is more for informational purposes also, Mr. Chairman. Just as you're getting ready to, before we get into January of these appointments, just letting you all know about them. We've got several expiring in December of 24. Committee, the committee was, I'm looking more at the blue ones, and I'll just highlight a few of them. The Building Code Appeals Board, Hal Absher and Ron Hughes. Obviously, Mr. Hughes passed away earlier this year, I believe it was, so need a replacement there. The JIDA has one going off. Mount Rogers Community Services Board has one going off, and Mountain Cap also has one going off as of December of 24. There are some other ones, but they are people like Nate Akers or John Hufford on some of these resource or conservation things that I'm assuming will probably stay on there, but these are the ones that we're usually looking for people to be on. The JIDA is one in particular. Matt Clark's 8 years or up.
I was
on
getting ready
it.
to ask. I was thinking that they've got term limits, don't
Yeah,
they?
and I talked to Matt the other day. It's a very diverse board, a good board there, but Matt's one of the few that comes from the industrial setting, and he was indicating he thought it would be good to have someone from the industrial setting on there in the process. He threw out a couple names. I'll be glad to share those with you by email if you all would like. There may be others that you think about, but the couple, two or three he threw out to me are people that I know have been in the industry around here for quite some time. But
Yeah, I mean, I agree. He's done a good job. He's went to the meetings, and
Yeah.
we definitely need to keep somebody in that realm on that board.
Is there only 4?
there's 7. 4 are appointed by us, 2 by Wytheville, and 1 by Rotary.
All right, anything else on the appointments? All right, we'll move on to the disaster recovery relief funding. We've got a memorandum of understanding on it.
Yes, this came in Friday afternoon. We have submitted information previously to United Way of Southwest Virginia that listed the number of destroyed homes and damaged homes based on our original crisis track review of homes. They have disaster relief funding that's come in for all of Southwest Virginia. This is an MOU for them to provide $23,391 to us. Like I said, came in Friday afternoon. We added to the agenda. I reviewed it with Scott this morning. Would recommend. I've made 2 changes to what's in your board package. It's what's handed out. Basically, we're not a municipal corporation. We're a political subdivision. And then on the second page, item
Gee.
5G. It just says deliver any monetary donations received by the county to WSWVA for the purpose of the disaster relief fund. And I'm just, in my technical self, if we get disaster funds directly to Wythe County from the foundation or whatever. We don't need to be remitting those to someone else. But if we get funds that come in for this purpose for United Way of Southwest Virginia, so I just rephrased that on 5G that says if funds come in for the purpose of the UWSWVA disaster fund, the United Way of Southwest Virginia, then we'll remit those to them in the process. I just didn't want language there to hamstring us that we're stuck with any funds that come in automatically going to them. So just a small clarification. But I would request your all's approval for the county administrator to execute this agreement as revised.
All right, have a motion by Mr. Morgan. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second by Mr. Burdick. Is there any questions or discussion on the motion? Right, here now we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 So approved.
And Mr. Chairman, I would just add, staff is meeting Thursday to discuss developing an application and scoring process for how we'll receive these funds and disperse these funds out. And then we will get that information out to those that have been affected. So,
Thank you, sir. All right, next we'll move on to board report. Or do you have anything else under new business?
no, sir, I do not.
All right, we'll move on to board reports. We've got the Buildings and Grounds Committee.
Mr. Chairman, the Building and Grounds Committee met on December 10th. We did have a quorum, and we have a few items. Item number 1 is approving the proposal for ZMM for the Circuit Court Building roof repairs, Phase 2.
All right, coming from committee, it doesn't need a second. Is there any questions or discussion on that one? Mr. Barry, I assume that's this side?
Clerk side,
Okay.
yes, sir.
All right. Does anybody else have any questions? All right, here now we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Burdick, we'll start with you.
Aye.
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 So approved.
Second item is authorizing the VDOT administer locally funded project administration agreement for the Bertha Farms, Grandview, and Meadowview Transportation Service Districts. Will have to be approved prior to remitting funds to VDOT.
All right, again, coming from committee, it doesn't need a second. Is there any questions or discussion on that one?
Mr. Chairman, I got a question about Meadowview. How did that go when we met with those folks that lived on Meadowview?
I did not make that meeting. I did not know that Mr. Hankins was there. There was some opposition in that meeting from what Ms. Shelton had indicated to me. There's some support. There is some that are opposed to it. We have not received a petition from those residents yet to move forward. I spoke with VDOT when I got this. It actually came in a little bit of way back, and I said, well, I'm trying to get all of my transportation service districts approved first before I execute this agreement with you. And they said, well, we really need you to go ahead and approve this agreement. And then they sent me the earliest that they would send us for our share of the matching funds. Bertha Farms would be July 1st of 2026 that they would bill us for the matching funds. That's the earliest date. Grandview would be after July 1st, 2025, and Meadowview would be after July 1st, 25. So they indicated that if we came back and said, okay, we cannot get the support for the transportation districts, then we would just tell VDOT we will not be proceeding with these projects, and they would remove these projects from their list.
Okay, so as long as we're not committed to the funds, because from what I'm gathering, that's going to be a no-go.
Yeah.
What the residents are saying.
And I called Mr. Bear this morning with the same question because I assume that based on your comments, you've heard from probably the same people that I've heard from. And I know Mr. Terry's got the same phone calls, and there's people that don't want it hard topped, and they have valid reasons for it. Yeah. But I called Mr. Bear because I didn't want us to hold up maybe another project for somebody that does want it, and so.
I've asked VDOT if they could separate these in the future, and They're like, well, when we applied for them, we applied to get, it was in the same fiscal year, so they sent us the agreements. And I was like, well, I think Grandview is going to happen. I think there will be enough signatures and things to come to you all for consideration. I've not been pessimistic about Bertha Farms, but it is such a large district, and to get 50% of the landowners and the land mass, there's a group that definitely wants it, and they're working on it. I just don't know that a petition is going to come forth to make that one come to fruition. And I feel the same way about Meadowview. I think there's a lot of opposition there.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to hold nothing else up.
Yeah.
There's another road there, but we also don't want to be on the hook for finances that we're not going to use.
Right. So I would request that go ahead and approve this. Then, like I said, they'll bill us, and we don't. I mean, you all got to approve any payments anyway. So it would.
And just to be clear, we don't actually have any agreements from the citizens yet on
any of these three roads. We do not. No.
Just wanted to be clear on that.
Yes, sir.
All right, is there any more questions or discussion on that motion? All right, here now we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry.
Aye.
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 So approved.
Third item is amending and appropriating $26,149.55 to 43043-443020 to finish the Health Department flooring project. This is funds returned by the Health Department from FY24.
All right, any questions or discussion on that recommendation?
Mr. Chairman, I will add one thing, and it's my fault for not including. It's to finish the health department flooring and to put a handicap entrance on it, on the door up there. That's the two things they had requested. I left that out in the process, but it was funds that they returned and asked for that. So door will come first, and then however many offices we can do with the balance of the funds will be next.
All right, does that lead into any discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Burnett?
Aye.
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 So approved.
Fourth item is approving the proposal from DBS Garland to administer the courthouse bell tower project.
All right, is there any questions or discussion on that recommendation?
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I'll just comment. There is what I'll call a low slope flat roof around the bottom of the bell tower right there, and it's also right on the very edges of the courthouse building. That section of roof needs to be replaced, and that's what this proposal will do.
All right, is there any question or discussion now? All right, here now we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 So approved.
Mr. Chairman, I was waiting for you to say that'll free up a few more trash cans, but
The last item is requesting the county attorney draft a deed of transfer of property owned by the Rural Retreat Volunteer Emergency Service.
Is there any, come from committee doesn't need a second. Mr. Bear, and I forgot to ask you this morning when I talked to you on the phone. Can you explain to me how Retreat Volunteer Emergency Service, because I really thought maybe that y'all sent the wrong land map, has come to own a bank.
and when you say bank, clarify that, Mr. Chairman.
A cliff. Yeah. It's the attorney came in clutch. This piece of land, and I'm quite familiar with it, is 75% a bank on the side of two roads. There's got to be a backstory to it.
I had Lisa pull the deed, but you may have something.
Mr. Hedrick came in to pay the taxes on it last week and reminded me that the deal that we had struck with them was that they were to turn over all of their assets to us. Well, this property was left to them. He didn't say who left it. Apparently, they didn't like them very much. But
That's honestly, I mean, and for the ones that don't realize, this is the road that I grew up on. You couldn't build a doghouse on that lot.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask, and I discussed this with the county attorney on this. I would request authorization for him to prepare a deed to transfer us, or to work with Rural Retreat Volunteer Emergency Services to convey this directly to another owner. And the reason why I do that, it's easier for them to convey the property than to us to have the public hearings and everything else that are required to do so, if Roger is so interested in doing so. And it may mean one of the adjoining property owners right there, about the only people that I can think that may offer us a very small amount of money in the process.
Very
Yes.
small.
Come on. Talk it up, sir. Talk it up. 3 doghouses.
3 doghouses.
I mean, there's only so much a polished politician can do. I mean, you just can't lie about that, especially now when the leaves are off the tree. And
But it was a deed of gift, I believe it's 1992, if I remember correctly, that was given to them. I tried to see if it was the person that owned the property originally across the street from it or something, and if they gave it does not make sense. That's why on county administration you have that county administrator sign off and accept parcels, because this is one that, you know, if somebody was giving it to us, we would not accept.
I don't think so.
But I would request, instead of accepting the committee's motion or recommendation, that you all authorize a potential, or the county attorney to work on a potential sale by Rural Retreat Volunteer Emergency Services, and if not, authorize a deed to convey it to Wythe County.
Okay, so coming from committee, it's basically on the floor. So do we need to vote that down and then restate the?
Well, it's a procedure issue, but if you don't act, I think it dies, right? But if you want to vote it down and say, or alter the recommendation to a second, that's doable too.
Historically, we have altered recommendations with a second and voted on items like that.
Well, we're still discussing this. Did anybody check with DEQ like I asked? Just to see whether it would.
Oh, for any type of
credit?
like credit of anything. Once we looked at it and realized what it was, that there's not really any credit that we think we can get out of this one. I do not know if staff has checked with anyone, but it doesn't really have any land credit to it that we can see.
Oh, for like the mineral rights?
No, just to where you offset property, like we would keep it and put it in a conservation easement or whatever and just let it stay as is. And we could say it's 0.6 acres of land that could be offset for a disturbance elsewhere.
And we can't do that.
We potentially could, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of value in that because there's not any, it's just that hillside right there.
Well, just a swamp down there on the Hitachi Energy Center.
Yep.
You know, I mean, giving up land anywhere.
Quail legs ain't that strong to walk. You really need to ride out there and see what I'm talking about. I mean, they're going to have to do leg day to get up and have that thing.
But you don't use it. That's what I'm saying. With the DEQ, it just sits there. That's fine.
Honestly, it may be more trouble than it's worth by the time we pay county staff into, because I mean it's not a half an acre, is it?
It's 0.6, I believe.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've got a motion from the committee. Does anybody want to amend that motion, and we'll get a second, move on with what Mr. Bear suggested?
I'll make that amendment.
Okay. So we've got the amended motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Terry. Is there any questions or discussion on that? All right. Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 So approved.
And that was all that the building grounds had.
Thank you, sir. I honestly have to say that's probably the weirdest thing I've seen. I mean, that just
I was really expecting from the time you got the agenda for you to be calling me about that because I was.
Well, I actually rode out there yesterday. I was like, maybe my memory's just not what it used to be. And I was like, no, it's a cliff.
Yeah.
Chuck got really excited when Mr. Hedrick told him that there was some land that was going to convey to us. We thought there might be some possibilities for what you could do with it. Once we saw that, we were strongly disappointed.
For rope rescue?
Rope
Absolutely. I'll move on to board member time. Mr. Burger, we'll start with you.
The only thing I had was, the question about the Dry Pond Road sign. I mentioned it 3 or 4 months ago, and you had some signs ordered.
I will double check on that, and I also mentioned Mr. Parnell, Mr. Zook, and with assistance of Miss Williams, have started a campaign online of getting people to notify us when signs are down and missing. When we did some of the ride through on the streams the other day, we were noting a couple of signs that were missing there. So I've also asked them once again to reach out to the school system and see if there's anything we can do with the bus drivers that are regularly on the routes. If they see them out, if they can get them back to central office, and central office can either use what we're putting out there or give a call in. Since we have a lady working over here at the emergency services office there all the time, there's somebody there that can answer the phone and take those down and give them to Randy, and he can get them ordered to make a list. But I will follow up on that and let you know.
Thank you.
I did approve requisition for some new 911 signs this week, but I don't remember which ones. I'll look at it before you leave and let you know.
And that's all I have, Chairman.
All right, thank you. Before I forget, will you send me her contact information and email information?
Yes.
Ms. Lawson,
I have nothing at this time.
Mr. Cook.
The only thing I have would like to let the sheriff know I appreciated the email we got from your office. It was nice to have somebody recognize what we do. Thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Smith.
I got a couple things, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Byer, if you could reach, and I'll send an email out once I get to where my email's working here. Lotscap Road between the residents at 393 and 435. There's some debris from the hurricane, locust limbs, right in the edge of the road. I mean, if you get close to the white line, it's going to be in somebody's vehicle. And then at the intersection of Ivanhoe Road and Fort Chisholm Road there at the library, the concrete curbing in the middle, there is a big bush growing at the end of that. We have VDOT to remove that.
94 at Fort Chisholm.
Yeah, Fort Chisholm Road. And then the building inspector positions, have we had any interest in that as far as applicants?
Yeah, I met with Human Resources and County Engineer and County Building Official yesterday, I guess it was. We have received about 7 applications so far and are looking at setting up interviews off of that.
Good deal. And then, as we was talking about the revenue sharing Southcrest, where are we on the start of that project?
I will check with VDOT. I don't remember the time frame on it, but I'll check with VDOT and see.
All right, thanks, sir. That's all I've got, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Mr. Morgan.
A couple of things. Excuse me. I saw an advertisement or an email or something. This is more from Matt than me. Anybody about Red Cross for kids? Something about maybe first aid classes for kids. Are you all aware of that? Or?
I don't recall seeing that. I'm not sure if we're involved or not. I'll check.
Okay, I thought that would be a good idea. Might possibly raise some recruits for your rescue squad, fire department. The other thing, I've been going to some of these meetings with the staff for flood disaster relief. I got to hand it to these guys, Johnny and Chuck, and all of them that are doing this stuff. the word salads that come out of these organizations, from these alphabet organizations. But Johnny and them, they just keep plugging right along with it. And I wanted to say, one of the things I got out of it was don't give up. That's what these organizations count on, you getting so far and then give up. Just don't give up, keep after it. And eventually you might get something out of it. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Mr. Terry.
Yes, sir, thank you. Just along the lines of what Mr. Cook said, I want to thank the sheriff for the email. I certainly appreciate that. I think the rest of us did as well, sir, so thank you for that. I ask that we keep Ron Lawson's brother and sister-in-law and their son in the prayers. He's going through some difficult times, and all those prayers would be greatly appreciated. And last thing I've got is Merry Christmas. This is the last week before we get to celebrate Christmas. So I hope everybody has a happy, safe, and a Merry Christmas. And that's all I've got, sir.
All right, thank you. I was surprised that it took as long for Stacy, because going last, and we don't have that many meetings that actually occurred before holidays. I was a little upset that, based on my festive tie and Mr. Bear's festive tie, that everybody can on that. But like Stacy said, have a Merry Christmas. Spend time with your family, and it's year's almost over. So if there's nothing else to come before the board, we'll be adjourned.